Besides problems that I've had with my weld this month, I have car problems. So I can drive it anywhere. It drives perfectly fine. Now, going up hills sometimes it does hesitate a tiny bit. But yeah, drives anywhere fine. If I let it cool down after 2 hours, it drives fine. But it was anywhere in between that I have an issue. It's kind of hard to tell, but it is a little rougher here. It gets a lot rougher when it's in drive, basically whenever there's a load. Now, at first I thought it was a vacuum issue, so I pulled off the EGR valve and cleaned it out. Everything was fine. It had a lot of carbon buildup. Now, the other thing I noticed is when I park it, it smells like gas now. So I think probably one of the tubes underneath here is probably disconnected. So I'm running rubber gas lines right now. I've put them, it's lasted like 2 years. I put them in when my brakes failed 3 years ago. And I mean, it could have just been swollen up or shrunk down or whatever's happening, but something's not right, and I think the gas is, I think it's just having a hard time sucking up gas, and it's creating vapor lock. So today I'm going to try to drop the tank. I got a new fuel pump. I went ahead and bought one of those anyway because I wasn't sure. I mean, it's a 30-year-old fuel pump. What's the harm in actually replacing it? So yeah, I'm gonna go take and drop the tank, replace the fuel filter or fuel pump, fuel filter, and put some new gas lines in that aren't rubber. Before I can do anything though, I have to get the car jacked up a little bit higher. Now, I made these wheel cradles, but I realized right now that I don't have anything high enough to actually get me up there. So I'm gonna take one of them, shrink it down so I can put my jack on it. So this is the rig I came up with to get underneath. It is a little bit smaller, but I'm definitely gonna be able to get under there. There's like 2 feet. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot these jack stands did work with these wheel cradles. And then this guy here, I have basically took the same setup. I put two 2x6s on top and a piece of old hardwood to kind of keep it from bowing down. And then it wasn't still quite high enough, so I ended up having to make an extension piece that kind of partially locks in place. So far so good. So I don't know if you can see very easily. You can totally see where my gas has been leaking. And I think that's the regular gas pump or fuel pump output. So, I mean, realistically, cleaning that up would have been fine. But I've got the parts, so I'll do the thing. First thing, I went ahead and I removed the guard. So you have all my gas lines and my brake lines. Now, obviously, I really need to replace these brake lines. Hopefully I will be able to do that in a couple months here. But I want to make this gas tank as light as possible. So I'm going to cut off the existing feeder line and drain it into a gas canister over here. Ooh, sun's out and it's hard to see. I've got the fuel filter here. Went ahead and I'm going to take it off. It's a 17mm socket. That way I can pull that gas line through and drain it. So I got the fuel filter out and I got the charcoal canister out, but now I'm confused. The isn't that supposed to be attached to something? I'll have to go through the instruction manual. Maybe something was disconnected all along.
I went ahead and let it set overnight because the gas smell was pretty unbearable by the end of it. But now we get to drop the tank. I already went ahead and removed the rear seats. Got to make sure to disconnect this in a second. And then let's see. The straps on, I think that side, the back side, have two bolts holding it in place. I'll remove those, but before then, I'll set my jack underneath it here just to support the weight. And that's pretty much it. There is the filler necks in the back that I have to disconnect, but then I'll have the tank down. I guess a big thing to remind everybody is just make sure to disconnect your battery so your car is not energized.
So the gas tank's finally out. Now it's a moment of truth if I actually have the correct fuel pump. Took me a couple minutes to get the bolts loosened up. I had to wait with the PB blaster. But got it out. It looks like it's a pretty good match. So I'll take it apart and hopefully it just goes back together correctly. I cleaned it up a little bit, now I'm throwing it back in. Charcoal canister, I'm still a little iffy on, because when I blow 40 psi through here, the instruction manual says it's supposed to pass through without any issue, but there is pressure in between here. Now this tube was completely rusted through, so I did clean up, but it doesn't matter because this is like hollow right here, and there's like an open tube at the bottom, so it's like open air regardless. But I think it's better than it was, so I'm throwing it back in. All right, I almost forgot to mention, I don't know if you can tell, at the very, very bottom here, there's a little hole in the frame that the bottom tube actually connects to. So that's actually where that goes. It just sits down there. Oh, it came with new screws, so I don't have to clean the old ones. Which ones are which? Hey, there we go. Oops. A new one? Yeah. Well, it should flex out of the way. That is a tight one. Huh? That's weird. Yeah, that goes on afterwards. Now, I had seen this in the reviews. The screen doesn't really fit. Oops. Well, I broke it in. Well, yeah, I broke that one anyway. Alright, let's see if I can pull the old one off without breaking this. Alright, that's going to take a minute. Yeah, this one looks like it's going to fit fine. It's just the one they provided didn't seem to, it just wasn't configured right for this. Guess it was probably like a generic one. Alright, we're all the way on. And there's the little itty bitty grommet for it. Where'd it go? There it is. That should hold. Looks like it will probably work. Yeah. Oh, dropping the squeeze. Oh, forgot another tool. Did it again. Time getting it on the first time, or getting it off. Oh, that squished. Come on. There it went. Oh! No! You're kidding me. Oh, that sucks. So I'm not super happy about the outcome, but I think it'll be fine. So there was just enough to put a screw on there, and then I dabbed it a little bit with super glue just to make sure it stays in place this time. So I'm gonna let the super glue harden up, and then I'll get to putting it in. Oh, almost fell off the stair. Fuel pump's installed. Now we just have to set it in spot. This is the vent line, so I'm gonna still use the rubber line for that. So I was running out of time. I ended up having to do everything kind of quick. Throw it in, get it together. Fuel tank's in, lines are run. I had issues. One of the two bolts for the fuel tank that holds it up in place, it took me like an hour to unstrip it. Ended up having to take a stainless steel nut with the same threads and thread it in to the bolt that stripped, and then ended up just kind of ugga-chugging it up into the unit there. I guess it says season. Loud bugs. Okay, so where the fuel line goes up near the front is a pain, because you kind of have to pull and bend to actually get it in the spot. I don't know if it's just because my new gas lines are just a little bit thicker or whatever. The bolt on my negative battery snapped while I was putting everything back together, so I had to use a new bolt. The flare tool that I have, I was missing the 5/16 double flare piece that I needed. This is the setup that I've been running for the last week. Obviously it's not great. I had a M14 by 1.25. I just took regular, like, gas rated tape, not gasoline rated, just like gas, and forced it up there until it made a good enough seal. And I ended up having to put a second of the hose clamps on here because it still was leaking gas, and obviously that kink is not great on there. So we'll get started. Now in the car here, one of the strategies that I've started doing whenever I'm doing flaring is I put a little zip tie. It's a little bit of a tight squeeze, but it works. The only weird thing that I have lately is trying to compress it. The double flare tool seems to go a little sideways, but for the most part it's alright. So we're gonna try to flare it out. I've been having very bad luck. So I'm going back to what I did with a slight difference. So I was able to double flare just the one line, but I just couldn't seem to get it to go straight in the car. So I'm gonna do a little rubber tube. I'm gonna take and score the copper, that way it doesn't slip, and I'm just gonna leave it like that. I'm done messing around with it. So after cranking it for a moment, it did start. I did help it along. I put a little bit of fuel injector cleaner in the fuel filter because obviously I need a lot of that running through right now. What I usually do is just take my hand, go under the fittings, and see if there's any leaking. Nothing. You can also just do it with a dry towel. Especially these blue ones, it's easy to see whether or not you've got something going on. And yeah, dry. So we'll give it a test drive in a minute and see how it does. So I'm back from the test drive, and I can say that everything went smoothly. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to have to admit that the problem that I've been having is not gas related, and it only recently occurred to me. Probably 2 days ago. I've been changing out my transmission fluid slowly, but that's going to be another video. But for the time being, yeah, drove to the gas station, filled it up with gas, went to the grocery store, let it set for 20 minutes, drove it home, and it drove fine after I had it off for over 20 minutes. So that's always been the thing. But wasn't the gas. I've been dealing with this problem all previous last week. I doubt that little piece that was kinked up that was causing it at all. I'm like 90% sure now that it's actually transmission fluid issue and it's the torque converter slipping. But I actually just finished driving like 100 miles in this thing to kind of circulate the transmission fluid and the transmission fluid cleaner that I've been doing. But yeah, that'll be one of my next videos. To finish up this video, I wanted to show you how I routed my lines for now. This is pseudo-temporary because I am going to do the brake lines. And what I plan to do is 3D print a proper bracket for these non-original parts. But yeah, I chose to do it the same way. I've got it on much further this time for where that that little pipe sits onto the other pipe. And then everything just goes around and then goes up right over there. So yeah, that's all I got for you today. We'll see what the next video is.